What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the West Side Sports Podcast. As always, I am your host, Dakota Ezri. As always, as well, my co-host, Travis Elliott, the man, the myth, the legend. We are back with another podcast for you guys today. We're going to be talking about Pete Carroll's introduction and his little press conference in Las Vegas. We have news. Finally, the Seattle Seahawks have hired one Klint Kubiak as their offensive coordinator. And then we're going to sprinkle in a little bit of Mariner stuff. There's not a huge amount of content, unfortunately, right now, but we do have a little bit of minor league signings and we got some fun guys to talk about. So with that being said, if you guys enjoyed the content, please do us a massive favor. Please subscribe. Leave us a comment. All that stuff helps us annihilate the YouTube the algorithm. We greatly appreciate it. Dude, Pete Carroll is the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. When you hear this, like we talked about last week, what is the initial reactions? What are your emotions? What are your feelings?
My initial reaction is excitement. We didn't think he was done. I didn't think he was done when he had moved on. You know what I mean? I remember racking our brains a little bit where he might go. And when I hear he's going to the Raiders, that actually really excites me because of, the type of player first coach that he is. It's a much different idea. You know what I mean? You come at things differently. And I think what he brings, the sense of brotherhood that he likes to nurture, that kind of a thing, could be huge. Maybe that's exactly what they're missing in the Raiders right now. The opposite side of that coin for me is, are they going to be open to it? You know what I mean? Which is the question for any coach, honestly. So, but I think it's awesome. It's going to be great to see him chewing double bubble and running up and down the sidelines again.
Yeah, man. I will say that my feelings are pretty similar. Having Pete Carroll back in football, always a good day. And yes, we're saying that because we're Seahawks fans, right? We bleed blue and green. But we were so lucky to have Pete Carroll as our coach. Coming from USC, there was the scandal about all of the Heismans with Reggie Bush, and was his game going to be able to translate, and was his coaching style and the way he was able to build his culture, would that translate to the NFL? And it spoke for itself. We won a championship. We reached the top of the mountain. We should have won 2. We ain't going to go into that conversation. That's a bunch of heartbreak.
Nothing but broken hearts down there.
Right. Pete Carroll in black and silver, man, I'll tell you, it's weird. It's a little weird to me. I know you and I are kind of like, it just feels, it's great, but it just feels kind of
weird
off at the same time. You're like, really? You're wearing the silver and black? Like, for any Raiders fans that are watching this, no disrespect whatsoever. We are very happy for you. You all are blessed to have this man come in your organization install culture and install a winning atmosphere. And he said today, and I'm reading a quote on Twitter, so for those of you guys who are wondering why I'm looking down at my phone, it's, we will run the football and we will play aggressive defense, which is exactly what he did in Seattle. He came in and he installed a run-first team. The press conference videos, for those of you who are on Twitter or Blue Sky, whichever social media you do, or Facebook, the video of Marshawn screaming, Raiders, in the background at the same time that Pete's doing his initial spiel, his introduction, quote-unquote. It was great. It was Raider Nation.
That got me pretty jazzed. Perfect.
It was cool, man. The energy was there. And this organization is so in desperate need, and desperate, I'm putting it polite, right? They haven't had anything to cheer about for a long time. I mean, the last time the Raiders were good, brother, we were like 6 and 7 years old, and Rich Gannon was quarterback. That's a long time ago.
Scrappy team, though.
They were good.
There.
They were
They're
fun.
Always around, a lot of fun. Well, I think part of Pete Carroll's success is he inherited a lot of really good pieces in Seattle. A defense that played the way that we wanted to play. You know what I mean? And, run play was just like the idea, so he could come in and kind of craft it and perfect it. And you know what I mean? And turn it into the LOB. You know what I mean? And then Russell Wilson shows up and the rest is history at that point. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I look at the Raiders team and I see a lot of exciting players there. You know what I mean? It's just, I think they're kind of lost in identity, I guess is a better way to say it. And, yeah, man. I mean, if Pete Carroll can come in and just hone the edge, you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's going to be a turnaround or any crazy thing like that next season, but I mean, it's definitely a huge step in the right direction.
Right. And I think the one thing, and we'll talk about more of this as we get deeper into the offseason, is that the Raiders do hold a high pick in this draft. And for people who are a big draft expert or like draft, I won't say experts, but are draft fans, right? For us NFL, junkies, we just love the draft, right? Because you can see all these kids in their spandex running around in the spandex Olympics, as they like to call it, for the quote unquote NFL combine. But there are some quarterbacks. There are players that are going to be talked about. Sanders out of Colorado, Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. They need a quarterback. The first thing they have to do is figure out the quarterback position. No disrespect to Gardner Minshew, Wazoo, Cougs. You tried your ass off. You worked real hard, right? But at the same time, if you want to be competitive, if you want to build a roster that can compete with the likes of Kansas City, the Chargers, and other teams in the Denver Broncos, who have Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, if you want to compete with those boys, you have to get a quarterback, and you have to build this in a way that you did similar in Seattle. And when you touched on it a minute ago with building that defense and then getting Russell Wilson, they just got lucky. You look at these guys, and it's like Richard Sherman was a wide receiver who couldn't catch the damn football and then played corner, but he just had a high IQ and a big old mouth, right? And then Doug Baldwin undrafted and Jermaine Kearse undrafted. We can go down the whole list, right? KJ Wright, 3rd-round draft pick. Cam Chancellor, 5th-round draft pick. They hit on gold. Bobby Wagner. We'd be sacrilege if we didn't talk about Bobby Wagner. Yeah. I think Bobby Wagner being in Las Vegas next year is a legit conversation. And a lot of people are talking about how many Seahawks are going to follow Pete Carroll to Vegas.
Yeah.
I look at Bobby Wagner. I look at Russell Wilson, and that's where the conversation starts. And Carl Scott, who is our defensive backs coach here in Seattle, currently still employed, has interviewed with the Raiders for their DBs coach. So the process has already started.
That's exciting. Honestly, it's just like, I'm just excited. That's really just the end of it, the Seahawks veterans who's going to go with Pete is really an exciting conversation. Tyler Lockett's made it very clear, like, I want to retire here. This is where I want to be. This is how I want to go. But I don't know. It would almost be like a NFL film if Russell Wilson goes to the Raiders. The Raiders, of all teams, to play with Pete Carroll again. You know what I mean? Just to give him that little bit of confidence in that quarterback position. If they don't hit in the draft, or, you know what I mean? You bring that young guy in and you don't walk him out there immediately, because, there's a lot of horror stories where they put these young kids out there and it's like big humbling moments. You know what I mean? Yeah. So bring somebody in to learn under Russell. I mean, Russell's got talent, man. We talked about, he fell off. We had our opinions, let's say, when he played for the Denver Broncos, but his little bit of resurgence this year has been awesome. It's just been cool to watch. You know what I mean? We were upset about a couple of things, a few things maybe, and then to see him be the Russell that was like that, the let Russ cook era. You know what I mean? Like when we was in Russ we trust, and every Sunday we showed up excited to watch Russell Wilson play.
Absolutely.
So with his arm talent and his ability to scramble, however diminished it might have been with age, you know what I mean? Like those are all really, really, really great skills to have in a quarterback, So I don't know. I see boons, and I'm not really nervous about it. You know what I mean?
No, but well said, and we'll put a little bow on the Pete Carroll, and we'll trans over towards Klint Kubiak. But Pete, I feel like we have a repeating nature on this podcast that we're starting to build. We thank you for everything you did for this city. You installed a sense of confidence that this nation just kind of disregarded us. We were a redheaded stepchild that people were like, oh yeah, the Seahawks, they're up in Alaska, like we talk about all the time, the Mariners, Southeast Alaska. But now that we are established and we have who we have now in our organization with Coach McDaddy, as we call him, and John Snyder, right? It's a humbling thing to look back at and say, man, were we fortunate for what we had, but now the Raiders have the opportunity to perform the same thing that we did years and years ago, to build a team from the ground up with a plethora of draft free resources and the ability to say, I'm going to build this team in my image with Tom Brady at the helm, pulling the strings. People will say Mark Davis owns the team, but Tom Brady essentially runs the organization. So
well, yeah, and
it's
you
going to
got
be
Tom
fun to
Brady,
watch.
you got Pete Carroll. I mean, two guys who just love the game,
Yeah.
and that's what that I think is the biggest thing that Las Vegas is going to get. Just people who love the game and they for all the right reasons. You know what I mean? And I mean, I cried when Pete left. You know what I mean? We had saw whatever, but he was that guy. You know what I mean? And I think that's awesome. I'd love to see that. For the Raiders, I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. And Pete, we wish you nothing but the best of luck. Do what you do best, chew on that gum, put on those Nike Monarchs, run up and down, sling footballs, and install that culture, and we'll see what happens. That's the least thing that we can say is best of luck. Thank you for everything you've done, and tenfold, and go kick some ass in that AFC West, man, because that's a tough division. I think that's the toughest division in football, besides for the NFC North. So,
He's got his work cut out for him, dude.
Klint Kubiak is the new offensive coordinator for our Seattle Seahawks. There has been a lot of mixed emotions on the social platforms about this.
There has
been. I know you probably don't know a whole lot about Klint Kubiak besides for his dad, right? Gary Kubiak, who was the head coach for the Houston Texans, was part of the Shanahan tree, the West Coast system. Essentially, what we need to know for people who don't know a lot about Klint Kubiak is that this guy led Kirk Cousins to the best year of his career, the best touchdowns to interception ratio. He had a tremendous amount of yards passing, over 3,600 yards passing, which for a lot of people are going to say, well, 4,000 yards passing is, the NFL standard if you want to call it a above average season. But this was also a couple of years ago, and they had Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison was a rookie. Right? So there's a lot of weapons, and Klint Kubiak knows what Mike McDonald wants, is to be a run physical first team, and he has the ability to do that. But when you say to yourself, we didn't get Hank Fraley, we didn't get Grant Udinsky, who was my go-to number one guy that I wanted. I still think there's an opportunity for him to be here, but I think that there's less and less happening, or less and less likely, I should say. But what's your feelings, man? Like, are you disappointed? Are you kind of just like, let's just wait and see? Or like, where do you stand?
I was a little bit disappointed because, I really wanted Hank Fraley, and I just thought that fit was good. You know what I mean? The last few years we've been talking about O-line, and you get a guy who was a lineman and, gets focused on being that lineman, line first, right? Like we say all the time, the war is won and lost in the trenches, right? So you wanted to see him. I wanted to see something like him, and then like bring in somebody else for a pair. I don't know how prevalent that is necessarily, but after doing a little bit of digging on Kubiak and thinking about it, he has tenure as a QB coach, an offensive coordinator, and a passing game coordinator specifically. And to me, my takeaway is that tells me he's learned. You know what I mean? He's not single-mindedly focused on the pass. He's not single, you know what I mean? Like, it's more of a broader understanding. Now, the caveat to that is I think you do need to bring in another, like a passing game coordinator, or, specifically a new lineman coach or something like that. You know what I mean? Just to make up the difference a little bit. So yes, I'm disappointed not to get Hank Fraley, but after consideration, it's like, I don't know if you absolutely had to have somebody to make up for what he lacked. That doesn't really sound like an offensive coordinator to me. You know what I mean? I think Hank Fraley would have been hugely beneficial. But we trust Mac. I trust Mac Daddy, dude. What do you think?
I think we kind of have similar sentiments on this, like different, we come from different angles. But for me, is first and foremost, I need somebody who can control and have the poise of the entire room to stand in a bunch of alpha males and say, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And most importantly, and you and I have talked about this literally ad nauseum, because it's just a repeated topic. It's on 710. It's Hawk Blogger. Shout out to Hawk Blogger. All the guys who just do this over day after day, right? This offensive line has been a problem for a decade, right? And when I say this, it's like, oh, well,
Basically.
Klint Kubiak isn't just going to come in and make this offensive line great. That would be stupid, right? That's not a realistic expectation.
Right.
But when you get an offensive coordinator who can look himself in the mirror and say, okay, I have a starting center, possibly. Oluwatimi, a center, is a up in the air possibility.
A healthy amount of hope.
Yeah, I mean, he has a lot of IQ and a lot of football smarts, but you and I both know you have to have weight in the pants. You need sand in the pants to be able to handle with these guys like we watched with Jalen Carter, with these guys that are 300 pounds, 290, and will absolutely wreck you, like play after play after play. And if you want to be able to be a physical run first team that we've talked about, that our coach Mac wants, you need guys who can perform that. And I think having a guy,
strong center,
having a guy in Klint Kubiak will bring a sense of like trust and also like, okay, we're confident. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to put you in a situation. I think, and you will appreciate this because you're a big like Asian culture fan, right? There's this saying I heard today that just hit me like a ton of bricks. Would you rather learn 10 ways to kick somebody over and over again, or would you rather learn one way to kick somebody and be a master of it?
Yeah, that was Bruce Lee, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, reason why I bring that up
I fear a man who's practiced one kick 1,000 times more than a man who's practiced 1,000 kicks once. Exactly.
Well done. Yeah. So it's like, the reason why I bring that up is we've seen 100 ways to peel an orange with this team, right? 100 ways to try and run the football, but the only way it was successful was Chris Carson, and you had a big Damian Lewis and a big DJ Fluker physical guard, and not to be disrespectful to the guys on the roster, but Christian Haynes did not start for a reason. Lawel Maya was in there over him because he was more physical, and we need a coordinator who can come in here and say, guys, we are going to run this system. This system is going to be operated in this way. It is going to look complicated, but be simple, which is the same conversation we had last offseason about the Seahawks defense with Coach Mack, bringing in that Raven style of defense where it looks incredibly, the illusion of complexity is simplicity.
Yeah.
Right?
A little bit of smoke and mirrors kind of
very hard at the eye to understand, but to be simple to be able to like carry out and actually do in the course of a game. And that's where it starts.
Right. And, to play fast like that, it takes everybody. You know what I mean? And to your point, the 1,000 kicks thing, right? Like, I feel like we've just been shifting guards a lot.
Yes.
As either a center gets hurt or, there's somebody, right, this isn't up to snuff, you know what I mean? Which is all well and good because, yes, they're big-bodied players, you know what I mean? And they have the fundamental skill to do what a center does, but it's a specific school of thought, you know what I mean? To be a center and to have to be a dynamic player like that, you know what I mean? Now, not everybody's going to be a Jason Kelsey type center, you know what I mean? But to be able to do all of those different things is crazy. And, and when we took Oluwatimi and we said, oh, well, you're our starter now, he's kind of like, oh boy, that's a lot to take on all at once. Absolutely. So I don't know. I mean, I like our guards, but I think center has to be priority.
It was tough on Olu though, man. Like, cause with the whole Connor Williams situation and him just snapping the ball, like he's trying to throw the ball to Santa in the North Pole, man. Like, not to be disrespectful to Connor Williams, but that dude was a turncoat at center. He wasn't capable of performing this offense at a high level.
Yeah.
And when you bring in a guy like Klint Kubiak, who's going to bring a West Coast system, he's going to, like, please, I don't know what's going to happen, and you and I are going to have a hell of a conversation about this with Geno Smith and all these guys, right, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Geno operates best in a play-action setting. He always has. He is good on when he rolls out of the pocket. He can throw the ball on the run. We saw with Noah Fant and these tight ends and AJ Barner running crossing routes and mesh concepts. And I leave that that conversation to Seattle alone with Matty and Griff, who are great football guys. Shout out to them too. But like, it's not hard to look at this team and say, you need to find a way to make the line better. Trey Smith is the best free agent, in my opinion. It's the number 2, arguably, inside of the ESPN like free agent class center or guard, excuse me, coming from Kansas City. You want an elite player. I want an elite guard. I don't care if it costs $20 million, John Snyder. I don't care if you don't believe that spending $20 million on a guard isn't logical football. If you want to get the chips with the dip and win the championship, then you got to do what you got to do.
And then we know what we have to do. The writing is on the wall. You know what I mean? And, all this time you want to say that's not logical football. That's illogical to say that. You know what I mean? Like, what good football team has there been without a good line?
Precisely. I mean, we looked
that doesn't make sense. That's
right.
Stupid. I mean, sorry.
You and I talked about this yesterday, like when we're watching the game. The Eagles just literally, not to be disrespectful to Commanders fans, if a few hours are watching this, you guys had a great season. The sky is the ceiling. You guys go as far as you want, right?
For sure.
But that team just literally said, we're going to manhandle you, and we're going to run the ball down your throat. Saquon Barkley is just better than any player you have on that offense. He is dynamic. He makes the offense, right? But when you have a line, then I don't know if you know this, 4 out of the 5 players on the Eagles offensive line are Pro Bowlers and All Pro.
Sheesh.
That's how you win. And then they focus on the trenches. Jordan Mailata was their left tackle, was a rugby player.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you're 6'6" or 6'7" and 305 pounds, but you can run like you're a tight end. You can play football. So I we'll put a little bow on this, and we'll transition towards baseball, and then we'll kind of work our way towards. But the mixed emotions are going to continue until we get more information. We hear more from Klint Kubiak to understand what he's going to bring to our team.
Reservations. You should.
Yeah. We need to hear what he's going to say, what his scheme is going to look like, which they're obviously not going to tell us much of anything, because if they did, it would be stupid, because then you're giving the league oh, hey, FYI, we're going to do this, this, and this, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But it's going to be fun. I'm glad this conversation, you and I have talked about this for a little while. We touched this on the previous podcast about who's going to be the OC. Kubiak's here. They brought him here for a reason. He has previous OC experience, and it's just time to see if he can right-click on the mouse, copy and paste, and see if he can repeat what he did with Minnesota and Kirk Cousins with here in Seattle, assuming Geno stays here, which I think there's a 5% chance. And to be honest with you, I thought it was less than 5% chance beforehand, but now that when Pete Carroll is in Las Vegas and Pete Carroll and Geno are like this, but like we talked about earlier, and not to jump around the place or too much here, Russell Wilson's going to cost you a hell of a lot less money than Geno Smith. Geno Smith is due $30-something million. Russell Wilson you probably get for 15.
Wow, what a world. Russell's backup. How about that, boo?
There's been a couple minor league guys that have signed with Seattle. We've talked about, are the Mariners going to do anything? Are the Mariners going to do anything? Can they please do something? Well, I mean, they did a trade for a right-handed pitcher, Will Klein, from the Sacramento Athletics. I hate saying that. That is sacrilege. That is just disgusting, right?
Such a bummer.
But this guy, for those of people who are wondering or want more information on who Will Klein is, you can find it on my Twitter down below, PNW Professor. I do have all the up videos from his drive line latest bullpen session.
Oh.
Guy was throwing 98.3 gas.
I did a little bit of a dive on him a little bit. I was just looking at the pitch mix. I was really curious on that. And it's a 3-pitch mix. His four seam's 97, curve 87, slider about 88. So arm angle 50. I look at that and I think Paul Sewald. I almost called him Paulie P. You guys don't know who that is. Paul Sewald, and not so much who's a guy? He played. He's been in the Korean League now for a little bit. Over the shoulder relief
Chris
arm.
Flexen?
Chris Flexen, yeah. So not quite as over the shoulder as that, but
sure.
I think that arm slot that gives me kind of like a Paul Sewald kind of a feel, which is very tentative, right? Very, very tentative. I'm not going to say I'm comping him to Paul Sewald of old or anything like that. But I see those little things, and that sounds good to me, and I have confidence in our organization when it comes to pitchers and finding their niche and what they do. But of the couple of stints he's had in the major leagues, if the numbers aren't nice, you know what I mean? They're really not nice to look at. So, but I mean, I see the basis of like a pretty solid pitcher, a pretty solid relief pitcher. So,
yeah, I mean, his profile is very interesting. The three-quarter arm slot coming over the top there is going to be kind of just another project, man. We talk about this every offseason. The Mariners do this. There is no other team in baseball that can take guys off the scrap
Let's
heap
drop it 2 degrees or whatever,
And Tyler Sauce, one of the Seattle legends, is becoming, a lot of people are going to be like, he's a legend. He's a lefty relief pitcher. His video was a 7th inning or 8th inning part of the ballpark because he's rooting and screaming for his guys after he just hyperextended his knee because he loves his team and he's dreamed of being a Mariners whole
screaming.
career. Right?
He was like we do. He was screaming.
Yeah. It's like there's a lot of guys like Shintaro Fujinami, who's the 103 mile an hour Japanese guy with the huge splitter. There's Will Klein.
I remember that.
I'm trying to remember the last guy's name. The Texas guy, relief pitcher for Texas, off the top of my head. But I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But anyways, we'll keep moving, right? They've done this so many times. Drew Steckenrider, Paul Sewald, Colin Snyder, Taylor Saucedo, the list goes on, right? These guys come in and they make them better, right?
Yeah.
Neftali Felice.
They focus on what you do well
for the Rangers.
That was one of my. That's why I fell in love with Taylor Saucedo when I heard him say that. So
it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, they signed a minor league guy named Jorge Lopez, which is funny because Jose Lopez, Mariners legend, who couldn't hit the broadside of a barn and was athletic as a garbage can. This guy was very low slash line, 269, 323, 369. For those people who don't know what those numbers go as batting average, on base percentage, in slug. You want your slugging to be over 450 typically. If you're not slugging over 450, that means you're hitting nothing but doubles and singles, which is fine. He's just minor league depth.
269 is a pretty good clip.
Yeah, I mean, we would gladly take 269 last year, but that's hindsight, and that's always works like that. But where we stand right now is we are getting ever closer. And for people that do not know, I will be at spring training again this year. I'll be covering some content, getting some reels and some videos for the channel. We're getting some YouTube shorts finally. We'll
get to see that broken Dodgers team.
Yeah. And it's going to be fun, man. There's going to be a lot of conversation. I'll keep my eyes on some players. It's going to be a Cole Young, a Colt Emerson, Laz Montes, these prospects that we've talked about that are getting closer and closer to the big leagues. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and see how they perform. But, dude, with that being said, this is just another show, bro. This is just what we do. For those of you guys who watched all the way up until the end, we really appreciate you. God bless. Much love.
Love you guys.
If you enjoy the content, please do us a huge favor. Subscribe. Leave a comment. Every subscribe and comment and like. If you like this video, please, it takes a second. Hit the like, subscribe. It really helps us out. We're going to try and grow this channel. We're going to try and do some more different things. I am in the works of getting some prospects onto this channel so we can try and get some guys on here. There was a prospect out of our region in Mount Vernon who is a huge top 20 draft prospect. That's something in the works that I'm trying to get some free time to make a conversation with him. It's going to be super fun. Please tune in. And again, much love. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Go Hawks. Go M's.